What's going on, everybody? GemMint here at the end of the week, counting down my top 10 favorite comics of the week. And I had to bring on my co-host, Rockin Robbie Billups.
Yo, what's up? You know how we do. I'm just excited to be here, and now it's time for me to make my impression felt, so sit back, relax, and strap on your seatbelt.
Man, I didn't know we were going to get a hot 16 up in here. Guys, be warned, this is going to be full-on spoilers. That's why we drop it so late in the week, so we can talk in detail, thoroughly about these books. A lot of these books are getting expensive too, man. $6.99 books, $9.99 books. It's like harder and harder to keep up with the pull list. So that's why I say you got to make the hobby fund itself. What does that mean? That means maybe sell some of your old comics in order to buy some new comics. And I got just the guy paying top dollar for collections right now, none other than the CEO of Dynamite Entertainment, Nick Barucci. Email him at nick.barucci@dynamite.com, mention comic book collections and GemMint Collectibles in the subject, and see if you guys can strike a deal. If that's not a problem for you and you just want to buy some comics, check out their website, dynamicforces.com, for all the latest comic books, back issues, key issues, CGC books, and more. And use the code Robbie to save 10% at checkout.
Oh man, code Robbie, I gotta use that one, man. And remember, be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and click that notification bell so you don't miss a single video here on GemMint Collectibles. My number 10 is The Six Sidekicks of Trigger Keaton, issue number 6. This is the final issue for now, because it does kind of set up the possibility of this series continuing, and I do really hope that it does. This has been a really great book. Trigger Keaton is like a famous television and movie actor, but he's complete D-bag, and all of these sidekicks, everybody who's ever been like the co-star in one of his shows or one of his movies, he just treats them like absolute crap. Later in his life, he winds up getting killed, and the only people that care enough to solve the murder of Trigger Keaton are these 6 former sidekicks. This has been a really fun book with a lot of zany energy. It is super humorous. It's got a really interesting, cartoony style, but it's worked. And in your new comic book reviews, Jim, you said that you never read this book. You never even heard anybody talk about it. Bruh, I've been talking about this on this top 10 for months. This book was awesome. It's super fun. It slaps a little.
It's so funny because as you're talking about the book, I'm thinking, man, I just said in my review today that nobody reads this book, and then boom, here you are. So Robbie's reading it. My number 10, I went with Regarding the Matter of Oswald's Body, issue number 1. I totally forgot to even mention this in my new comic book day reviews, but I did read it from Boom Studios. It was okay. Let me be honest with you. This was a slow week for me. My number 10 and number 9 would probably not have made a list had there been better books out this week, but I had to come up with 10, so I put this at 10. It's a gritty type of mystery type of recruiting a team story regarding Lee Oswald and the assassination of JFK, and kind of putting together this team that all have specific skill sets in order to do something. I don't even remember what it was, but it did flow good. It was interesting. The art style was gritty and pretty dark, and it was an okay issue.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty solid. I really like the artwork, and I like the setup, right? It's basically, if you read the solicitations, and they don't really explain this too much in this first issue, but this dude's putting together this team on behalf of some, government black ops operation agency or something to kind of like do the whole conspiracy theory JFK assassination thing, right? And it's all tied into Lee Harvey Oswald, right? So allegedly they're the ones that are supposed to be building this conspiracy, but they don't know that. This whole first issue was kind of set up like the beginning of a heist film where they go out and they get their people and they're like, you son of a bitch, I'm in. My number 9, Justice League Last Ride number 7. I've really liked this series. Chip Zdarsky understands these characters. He understands how to make a very bombastic Elseworlds type Justice League story, and it really fit and it really worked. The artwork was fire. It was dope. I like this conclusion. What I love about the series overall is that Chip Zdarsky is able to go into these relationships between Bruce and Clark and Diana and kind of play around with that, but also give us this really great dark side story, this big bombastic plot. And I really like the subtle kind of finale where they kind of tease the idea that this book could continue and we might have a Justice League Universal come. And of course it's outside of continuity, but it's the Omniverse. Anything can happen.
Yeah, that's a little bit higher on my list, actually, so I'll hold off on that. My number 9 is What's the Furthest Place from Here, issue 1. If you watched my new comic book day reviews, it probably came off like I didn't like it, and it was okay. I just thought it was a little confusing as to what the hell is going on here. It's a big oversized issue. There were a lot of those this week. And it's kind of telling this story of a post-apocalyptic future where seemingly only children survived, and they're living in little territories and defending them, Lord of the Flies style. There was a pregnant girl there as well, and they kind of seemed like they don't really understand that she's pregnant. I don't know. It's something going on as well with like these supernatural strangers that seemingly have dropped them off. Again, probably wouldn't have made my top 10 on a better week, but I had to fill this list.
You know, I really rather like this one. It's a bit higher on my list, I will say, so I'll save it for that. But my number 8 is going to be Strange Academy number 13. This is by far one of the most consistent books that Marvel has. I've been criticizing Marvel lately of not being able to tell one-and-done self-contained stories in the midst of an overall narrative building up to one big point. I have criticized Marvel lately of not sticking with creative teams and not having a consistent artistic team throughout the book. All that goes away when we talk about Strange Academy. This book is old school as far as that goes. Of course, it's like Hogwarts in the Marvel Universe, all these magical, young characters from different corners of the Marvel Universe. I really like the characters. Humberto Ramos, I think, is pumping out the art of his career. And this dude's been in the industry for decades, right? So to say that now in 2021, I'm seeing the best work of his career says a lot. Scotty Young knows how to balance the characters, balance the mystery, and do something different. This is setting up the second big year of this book, and I am just loving it. It's like McDonald's fries, man.
Great points. I like everything you said about the creative team and being consistent. I did drop it, however, due to that type of childlike nature in the school, a la Hogwarts of Marvel. That really wasn't for me, but I do respect the two creators sticking with it, and Humberto Ramos is a great artist. My number 8, I went with Joker issue 9. Again, it was a slow week for me, but I do like this kind of idea that Vengeance was created as a clone of Bane, and that there's this slew of Joker clones here being ready to be used for whatever. I kind of like the whole person who is running the laboratory saying how, you know, they started cloning people to sell it to the elite because they like to eat human flesh and all this kind of stuff. It was really out there. I definitely like the Gordon stuff. He gets himself into a situation seemingly unable to get out of at the end of this issue and is going to place that call to Batgirl. Although she kind of picks up like not concerned that he's dying or whatever, right? She picks up the phone like, oh yeah, I'm just watching TV and like, hello, are you there? But I guess she'll find him, and that's probably how this will resolve. It was a pretty good issue, though.
Man, Joker is losing me. This book is just kind of dragging on for me, right? I really like those first, 4 issues. I like the focus in on Gordon and even the presence of the Joker being felt. I feel like that's been lost. I think that Tynan's trying to do his Court of Owls. He's trying to lay in the groundwork for this vast conspiracy that kind of puts old school popular Batman ideas into a different perspective. And I like the concepts, I like the ideas, but the execution to me is just a little bit dull and boring. And I thought the artwork in this one, especially with March not being there, really kind of suffered for it. My number 7, it's a Batman book, Batman the Imposter, issue number 2. I didn't like this quite as much as issue number 1, but I did still think it was an incredibly strong book. It's written by the writer, the screenwriter of the new upcoming Batman movie with Robert Pattinson. Man, I'm really excited for that. With the whole penguin and he flips the car and he's just walking towards him upside down. Bro, I was getting chills, right? This book gives me chills. I like the nice, deep, dark, psychological take on Batman at a younger age. He's a little bit younger in his career. And the idea that we see all these kind of Elseworlds on Batmans, and they're like, oh, here's the Batman story, but in a slightly altered world. But this one, they're making some changes that actually kind of make it work. Like Leslie Tompkins is more of a psychologist and not necessarily just a doctor. So we're diving deep into the psyche of a young Bruce Wayne. We don't have an Alfred. Commissioner Gordon's not around anymore. If you take some of these pieces away from the mythology of Batman, what happens to Bruce Wayne? And this is what they're doing. I love the overall story. And do we need to keep saying it? If Andre Sorrentino's on the book, I'm going to read it, and it's going to look amazing.
Totally agree with you. Love Andre Sorrentino, and this book is good. It's a grounded, realistic take. Let me stop talking about it. It's further up on my list. Moving on to my number 7, I went with Righteous Thirst for Vengeance, issue 2 by Rick Remender. Almost missed this one. The cover is not really eye-grabbing, I would say. It's a little bit bland, but I really do like this story. It's told kind of almost like in a silent issue format. It seems like this guy stumbled upon a network of assassins and jobs and goes on a job and meets up with some other guy and like, hey, you're late, come on, let's do this. And now he's going to wind up being a mercenary for hire. I don't know if he has any formal training in that. Is that part of his skill set? I'm not really sure. It seems like he just let curiosity get the best of him. I don't know, Robbie. What do you think?
Your number 7 is my number 6. It's the same book. I like it when it works out like that. Righteous Thirst for Vengeance. I think it's a pretty solid book. The story so far is a little bit thin. We don't really know too much about what's going on. We kind of got to work for it. We kind of got to read it a little bit more slowly and look at it. It's a quick read because it's mostly told visually. But speaking of those visuals, Andre Lima Araujo, you gotta be kidding me. I love this cat. There was a book back in the day, like 2017. It was my favorite book that year. It was by Aleshkot and Araujo, and it was called Generation Gone. And I want more of that book. This dude's art style reminds me of something like Akira, meaning that there's a lot of complex, intricate detail throughout the backgrounds and the foregrounds. There's great space, though. There's got room to breathe. It doesn't feel cluttered. It doesn't feel overwhelming. The artwork is clean but detailed and textured. Man, I love it. And of course, you can definitely tell he's cast Benedict Wong as the lead role, but I'm getting a little bit more invested in the story. It's an incredibly slow burn so far. It's from Rick Remender, and that's not usually his style. So I think it's interesting for him to stretch as a writer like that and allow Andre to handle more of that narrative through the visuals. I thought it was super striking.
Moving on to number 6, Justice League Last Ride, issue 7, Chip Zdarsky. I could talk about it. You've already talked about it on the list. And yeah, I think it's good that they ended it in a different way than what we expected. We expected this to be the end of the Justice League. Maybe Darkseid wins. Maybe the whole universe explodes. But Chip Zdarsky gave us kind of like the good ending. From Wayne's World, give him the good ending. Got the good ending. Everybody's happy. Everybody wins. And it sets up this Justice League. What is it called? Intergalactical instead of Justice League International. So it's interesting that he left it open-ended so that he can do more stuff with it, and I'm all for that. This run had it had great fight scenes. It had great stuff with Darkseid and the power of Oa and the Green Lantern stuff. The character development and relationships between Martian Manhunter and Bruce and Superman and Wonder Woman, all that was great. So I'm down for more Chip Zdarsky Justice League stuff for sure.
Yeah, I really liked how it set itself up for all of that. The Justice League Universal, the new role for Martian Manhunter, things like that. There was a lot of interesting setup, and I'd love to see us revisit this world at some point, possibly in a future crisis. Because, DC likes their crises. Actually, it's crises. DC likes their crises. Anyway, before we move to the top 5, we're going to go ahead and talk about the weakest books of the week in our opinion. The pick of the week. My pick of the week is Phenom X. Number 1, from John Leguizamo and a bunch of other people. 4 people wrote this book. Whenever it takes 4 people to write one single comic book, that's a bad sign. This book is John Leguizamo's idea for him to play a superhero. It's basically the story of Luke Cage, right? Wrongfully imprisoned, experimented on, he gains these powers, but it's also got a lot of social commentary in it that just doesn't really quite work. I'm just going to tell you this. And John Leguizamo's character is making these jokes. At one point, he's beaten off in front of someone. I don't even know. This book was so bad, I think I kind of like it.
First time ever, we share the same pick of the week. I thought this book was super cringe. I hated the dialogue. How did 4 people write this and not come out good? It's did anybody read what anyone else was doing here? Some of the John Leguizamo jokes hit. Some of it felt like, okay, he must have written these lines. Some of the lines were somebody who spends way too much time on Twitter. It didn't seem realistic. Yeah, the story is it's hard to do a new superhero story, an origin story. And this guy is basically the Absorbing Man from Marvel Comics. Yeah, it was whack. Pick of the week.
Yeah, and he wrote it like he came up with this idea in the 90s after doing Spawn, and it totally plays itself out like a 90s comic book movie. And I don't mean that in a good way. My number 5, though, Action Comics 1036, bruh. I loved this book. I'm really liking what Philip Kennedy Johnson is doing on Superman right now. I'm not really digging the Son of Kal-El book, but I am loving Superman. Superman's off to Warworld to fight the latest iteration of Mongol. Mongol is enslaving people. He's been doing this whole time. Why does Clark care right now? Because possible former Kryptonians are the ones that he's trying to go save, right? So they built up to this idea. They're throwing in the authority stuff from that Grant Morrison book. They try to make that fit. That's a little weird, but at least they try, right? They actually address the idea that Superman is losing his powers. He does have gray hair. He is a little bit older, and it's all been this illusion that Enchantress and Manchester Black has been playing on other people to make him think that he's a little bit more youthful, a little bit more vibrant. But when they get to Warworld, Mongol is ready. They show up. This dude's there. He ain't got no arms. He ain't got no legs. He's the only one, the longest living fighter on Warworld, because it's like this gladiator world just filled with slaves, and they have to fight and combat in these crazy tournaments. Like in the old Mighty Morphin Power Ranger days. Anyway, when Superman and the Authority show up, dude, all the people that Superman was coming to save have already been killed, and their bodies, their corpses are lined up, making a pathway for Superman and the Authority to go and meet Mongol face to face. This was big. It was epic. It's science fiction. It's Superman, and it works. This is good. Don't sleep on it, Jim.
Yeah, I didn't realize that the Action Comics was going to follow Clark Kent. I thought he was going to be out of the picture, and I liked the War World stuff, so I might have to pick that one up and stick with it for a little bit. My number 5, I went with Alien 8, also Philip Kennedy Johnson. If you like any Alien movies, you're going to like this one. It's the same type of setup, the same type of premise, but we get new characters, a new situation, a new planet. It's been terraformed. It's been colonized by humans, and they have this like religious aspect to it. It almost seems like they're almost like Amish in a sense. A plane crash or spaceship crashes that's supposed to have drops for them or whatever, has aliens on it. That sucks. And then it plays on that whole nobody believes this person. The actual woman who's in charge, who we found out last issue, has a terminal illness, and that she could have cured herself had she gone back to Earth, but she wanted to sit here and make sure that they earned the rights to the planet, which they wouldn't have any other way. It gets deep. And now we're in the thick of it. Now aliens are killing everybody. It's what you would expect, and it has the same type of foreboding atmosphere as those movies.
Yeah, I'm actually liking this alien story a lot more than I liked the first arc. I thought the first arc was decent enough. This is a complete new story, so if you haven't been reading it, you can jump in on the last issue, read this one, be caught up. The only thing I'm not liking is the coloring on this book. I get that they're trying to color it like there's this one world. It's very monochromatic, but it just doesn't work. It muddies up the artwork for me, and that's the only thing I really didn't like about it. Aside from that, I thought the story was really great, and if you like alien movies, alien comics, alien stories, I think you're going to fall right in line with this one. For my number 4, I'm going Venom number 1. Al Ewing, Rom V, Brian Hitch. First of all, Brian Hitch. Whoever thought that this dude would still be pumping out amazing artwork, and he is. The artwork in this Venom book is amazing. It's extra sized. It's all Brian Hitch. You got Al Ewing doing the more cosmic Eddie Brock type stuff. You got Rom V doing the down-to-earth Dylan type stuff, and I like where it's going. It's not some people coming in trying to completely gear shift everything. When Donny Cates and Ryan Stegman dropped their Venom number 1, that was a big game-changing moment. We don't need one of those now. Now we just need some really great follow-up and some really cool ideas, and that's what we're getting. I really liked it. Eddie Brock's off in space. He's jumping from symbiote to symbiote. He's thinking about the big grand cosmic scale. We get a lot of teases into things building up and what's coming. A new character called Bedlam is on the rise, and of course, everybody's going to be wanting to buy that first appearance. By the way, first cameo was in this issue, but the Dylan stuff works so well for me. I'm really interested to see how Al Ewing works with Rom V doing 2 different stories, but what I was really impressed with was 2 styles, 2 writers, 1 visionary artist, and 1 cohesive vision for this entire series. It was a great start to the next chapter of Eddie and Dylan's saga.
Yeah, we got the same number 4. Yeah, they're doing a great job of telling a cosmic epic with a grounded, earthbound story at the same time. Love how it picks up from the Donny Cates run. We're not thrown into something completely different. It's just basically a sequel, a successor, if you will. It has a nice blend to it. I do feel like the new villain feels a little nullish. I don't know how excited I am about this character, but a lot going on, telling us like what Eddie Brock's capabilities are, how he's able to basically have these swarms of symbiotes, and he can just jump into everyone's mind whenever he wants. But there's this villain who's able to block him and able to take over symbiotes as well. So that's going to be interesting. Dylan not doing too good on planet Earth by himself without his father. His father seemingly doing his own thing, checking in once in a while, which becomes longer and more spread out as they go along. I wanted to see a little bit more Dylan with the Venom symbiote, but I guess Venom's doing his own thing too. It's almost like we needed a third writer to give us what Venom is actually doing. But yeah, I thought it was a strong enough first issue.
Yeah, they need a third writer for the Venom symbiote. Then they need me and you to come in and just write the sleeper side stories. We can just do the symbiote cat, right? That'd be totally cool. And I also love the idea of Eddie not just being able to move through space instantaneously, but he can also now move through time. Like, that's some weird, cool, crazy stuff. I'd like to see that kind of, like, rolled out and, like, expanded on. That'd be really cool. For my number 3, I'm going May's book number 3. This is a book that I just read before we filmed this video because Diamond shorted us. I had to go digital on this one and actually, do the thing. But I loved this book. May's book by Jeff Lemire. I love Jeff Lemire's artwork. I know it's not for everybody, but it is perfect for the books that he decides to illustrate himself. It's about a dude trying to find his missing daughter, but his daughter actually died from like a terminal illness, cancer or something years ago, but he's been getting these phone calls late at night and he's hearing her. She was obsessed with maze books and he kind of finds this one unfinished maze that he thinks somehow ties in to the city layout, but at the end of it, and overall, all of that craziness, this book is about somebody coming in to check on their friend. Like somebody just reaching out to somebody that looks like maybe they're not having the best day and inviting them over for coffee and ramen and sleeping on the couch, right? But I love it. This story has a sad, melancholy, kind of bittersweet tone to it, and that's something I know from Jeff Lemire's work. Royal City, Trillium, actually, I should say, not Tritium. Tritium was that stuff from Spider-Man 2. Precious Tritium. Anyway, Jeff Lemire knows how to tell a very nuanced story with amazing artwork. And one of my favorite things I started picking up, if you notice, every other character, they're a little bit more defined by the quirky line work and even the coloring. But the main character, he's getting looser and looser, almost as if he's losing himself in this world of depression and despair. Man, this book hits. I love it. And the ending, bruh. Talking dogs. You know me. Primordial was my favorite book last week. I love me some talking fucking dogs.
A little bit higher on my list. My number 3, Batman and Robin number 1, also by Jeff Lemire. He's joined by Dustin Nguyen, I believe it is. Great book. It's a part 1 of a 3-issue little series. It's the DC, what did you call it? A premium format or whatever?
Prestige format.
Prestige worldwide. Great issue, man. Retelling the story that we've seen so many times. Robin first joining with Bruce Wayne and training as Robin. Bruce being very hard on him, being Batman how he normally is to him. Wondering if he's worth it. Batman questioning him. It kind of shows the introduction of how he came up with the name Robin and the Robin costume, and how Batman kind of came up with that at the same time by reading his journal. That was a big no-no. But it had a lot of heart, man. This book was good. The stuff with Alfred, with Dick, with Bruce, it felt natural. It felt right. And great start off to this 3-issue series.
Your number 3 is my number 2. It's Robin and Batman number 1. And you pretty much said it all. So I don't even know what else I'm supposed to say. Jeff Lemire, write good. Dustin Nguyen, draw good. Batman, Robin, good all together, right? This book was great, though. I love that dynamic between Alfred, Bruce, and Tim. I mean, not Tim. Dick. I'm sorry. Tim Drake's the best Batman, so... Best Batman, best Robin, and best Batman. Bruh, do I even know where I am? Is this real? There is no spoon. It doesn't matter. Robin and Batman number 1 was absolutely amazing. It's a very familiar story. We've seen it done so many times before. The origin of Robin. Not like the death of his parents or anything like that, but how he makes that transition from training into being Robin every night there with Batman. We've seen this so many times from the animated series and other comic books like Lee Week's The Gauntlet. If anybody's never read Batman The Gauntlet, check it out. Robin's first night on his own. But this book really worked, and it worked because of that human connection. Like Jeff Lemire knows how to write people's emotions so real that almost, I think they're so inclusive. Anybody can read a Jeff Lemire book and be like, I've been through that. You know what it's like when you're young, you're trying to prove yourself and someone invades your privacy, right? And you know what it's like when you got like a kid or maybe a cat. I don't have kids, but I got pets, right? And you're like, no, don't do that. And then they do it anyway. And you're like, I told you not to do that, right? We understand that. We know what it's like to be Alfred caught in the middle. And Dustin Nguyen, nobody knows what it's like to do amazing artwork like this cat does. The coloring, it's like they've got this watercolor texture to it. It's beautiful. It worked. Prestige format. It was It's so worth it. And I know there's so many Batman books out there. What really sucks about that is that most of them are pretty freaking good right now, especially these ones from people like Jeff Lemire and Dustin Nguyen.
Speaking of too many Batman books, number 2 on my list is Batman the Imposter. Number 2 by Mattson Thompson. What's his name?
It's Mattson Tomlin, I believe, right?
Tomlin. That reminds me of something from The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And did I say Andrea Sorrentino? I probably did. But let's emphasize that again. Great book, dark, gritty, down-to-earth storytelling. I like this world. I sound like Method Man from Judgment Day. I like this world. Anyway, so I like the relationship between Bruce Wayne and his therapist that he's been going to since he was a boy. It's all making sense to her now, the things he was saying back then, and to come to find out that he's Batman. They've got this kind of pact where as long as you check in every night with me, I don't know why, but it is. I'm not going to call the feds on you. And he's been getting later and later with it. He's really on a mission trying to find out who is this imposter, who is this person dressing up as Batman and killing these villains. And now Bruce is finding out that they're all tied together somehow. They've all been sentenced, all but one, by the same judge. A judge that let them go back on the streets because Batman's the one who brought them in. So interesting how that's all tying together, coming around full circle. Then you got Andrea Sorrentino's artwork, which could tell a story without dialogue. Paneling is insane. Sometimes it looks like a Windows 95 desktop, and it's like really even more so in Primordial. It's a great down-to-earth Batman book. If you're going to pick any Batman books this week or to read ongoing, you should check out Batman the Imposter and Batman and Robin.
You know, I think you just figured out Sorrentino's trick. He just does all of his digital art on a Windows 95 machine, right? Real quick, Jim, have you ever seen the Van Damme film called Cyborg?
I don't think I caught that one.
Bruh, it's not a good movie, but it's one of my favorite dumb, bad movies, and that's where that line is from, the whole, I love this world, man. You took me back, bruh. I love that.
Robbie, before you jump into number 1, a quick word from the sponsor of this video, Cheap Graphic Novels. Cheap Graphic Novels is your online home for brand new graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They pride themselves on packaging your books so they arrive safely and in excellent condition, as well as prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain bin for even greater deals up to 90% off cover price. CGN is excited to announce that they're now taking pre-orders. They're making it easier for you to ensure that you don't miss out on the hottest releases. Cheap Graphic Novels is currently running a special promotion for the Geminites. If you're a first-time customer, let them know that you were referred by Mint Collectibles at checkout and you'll receive a credit for free shipping on your next order. This promotion is only valid for the United States. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discounts and quality shipping and customer service that will keep you coming back for more.
My number 1, speaking of taking it back, what's the furthest place from here? Number 1. I liked it a whole lot more than you, but bro, let me tell you what I liked about it. So yeah, the story doesn't really quite dive into what's going on, really. We're in this world, it's post-apocalyptic, maybe, where you got all these kids that are living on their own and these different factions, these different gangs, kind of like warriors, right? Just a little bit, right? But this one group that we're centered on, they're in a record store, right? And so the use and the language that they're talking about with music and the importance of music to these characters, there is a variant of this book that came with like a vinyl record with a couple songs on it. Each one's going to have that original songs written for this series. I loved it. I thought this was a masterclass in technique. Matthew Rosenberg writing a very compelling story that we are very light on concept, but very heavy on characters. And there's a lot of characters. This was a triple-sized issue at like a double-sized price. There was a lot to it, but it flowed very well for me. The artwork by Tyler Boss, who's also credited, of course, as a co-writer, co-creator. They did this together. Man, I love the artwork. Nice detail, lots of room to breathe, clean line work, but a very definitive style. Hassan Otsman El Hal on the lettering really helps lean into that. Now, Tyler Boss and Rosenberg have worked before on 4 Kids Walk Into a Bank. That was a really cool book. Boss did the lettering himself, and when that book came out, I was telling people how important that lettering was to that art style. To see Hassan Otsman El Hal come in and actually do his own thing, but still make it so much a definitive part of the artwork, of the book, of the mood. This book blew me away. I thought it was incredibly well executed. Amazing, immaculate drawings and composition, great flow, an interesting story, but more compelling characters. I'm down for this one. And actually, I want to hear those songs and know what they sound like.
I don't know, Robbie. I kind of think you're overselling it. I'm glad you loved it. I was a little bit lost. My number 1 is May's book, Issue 3 by Jeff Lemire, and you kind of said everything about it. I mean, it's a great story. It's deep, but it flows good. You don't get bogged down in dialogue, and sometimes you don't get any dialogue at all, but you feel it. The emotion oozes through these pages of this guy who's just given up on everything. He lost his wife. He doesn't care about his job. His daughter died 10 years ago and now is reaching out to him from beyond the grave. She's being held up in this city. Is it supernatural or is he just crazy? Well, since this is a spoiler show, it might be supernatural. He gets to the dead end in the maze in the city. He ends up finding the little sewer grate going underneath, and he ends up in like the upside down, if you will. And the neighbor's dog who died, who Robbie mentioned, who he saw in the picture, he's there and he's like, yo, what took you so long? Like the dog's talking to him. He still could be crazy, but it doesn't seem that way. And I really want him to find his daughter and find out what this mystery is all about. It's been a great series so far. If you can get past issue 1, it's super depressing. There's light at the end of the tunnel, quite literally, in these next issues. So Maze book number 1, my favorite book of the week. Maze book number 3.
Maze book is amazing. It should be a Maze book. Anyway, that doesn't quite pop as well as a title, but you're right. The emotion that Jeff Lemire can bring through with his line work, with his pacing, with the story. And I love too when maybe the dude is crazy. And at one point he's looking at his neighbor and he's like, yo, do you think I'm crazy? And you can tell that she's like, oh yeah. But she doesn't want to tell him that. She's like, no, this is metaphorical, right?
Yeah, a couple of times they're like, we're talking in metaphors, right? And they're like, yeah, I think so. Some good books this week, not that many of them in my opinion. It was kind of a slow week, but like I said, even within a slow week you can still have some bangers. Let us know what you thought about this week's comics in the comments below. Make sure to swing on over to Rockin Robbie's channel, Pop Culture Philosophers, for his weekly comic book reviews, plus a slew of other stuff he does, movie reviews, pop culture, top 10s of the week. Anything else, Robbie?
Yeah, dude, you gotta join us on Sunday nights at 7 p.m. Central Time for Rockin Robbie Live. We always have fun there, and I've been going through these Wolverine books, starting with Barry Windsor Smith's Weapon X. I'm trying to do this chronological look at Wolverine's history through a little bit of stuff that I do on Rockin Robbie Live. Anyway, I've said too much. I'm just going to chill till the next episode.
Speaking of episodes, make sure to check out our top 10 comics of the week last week. Make sure to check out my weekly comic book day reviews from this week if you missed it, and subscribe to both channels. Thanks for watching. Stay minty fresh. Peace.